Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you might be. Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew Hegum. I am one of the co-founders of the Accounting Alchemy Network, and I am really excited today to give you a little bit something different. We are actually hosting a product demo, which is something we've never done before. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter experience. We will have some guests coming into the space today. And so if you are a guest for today's live demo, welcome. We're happy to have you. If the chat function or feature is working, which I think it is, it's somewhere in the Zoom space, please feel free to leave questions and comments along the way. But for those of you who are watching the recording, please still leave your questions and comments wherever that box is to do said thing. But for those of you who are new to the Accounting Alchemy Network, let me tell you a little bit about who we are. In short, we are a grassroots movement helping the accounting profession to learn how to prioritize and practice and prioritize people and planet over profit. That sort of made some sense. And basically what that means is that we run all kinds of programming helping accounting professionals understand how they can have an impact through their work in the world. We've had some really amazing guests and really amazing workshops and really amazing conversations with really amazing people. If you're watching this on your YouTube channel or our YouTube channel, you can definitely find that content here. Also, check out our website. I'll put the link in below as well. You'll be able to join our email list, and that's really where we send out all of the information about what we're working on within this community. But because we're going to keep this short today, I want to get right to the point, and that is to introduce our guests. So Bailey, you have been a member of our community for, gosh, now almost like 6 months, it feels like thereabouts. Is that accurate? When did you,
I'd say so.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think it would have been earlier in the year. Somebody who I know in the regenerative space mentioned Accounting Alchemy Network, and I was like, I need to be a part of that.
Yes, and we are happy that you joined us. It's super awesome. Our community is small but growing, and we're getting out there, and we're happy to bring people like you into the space who are aligned with the values of regenerative accounting. So today is a product demo, and so I'd love it if maybe you could first and foremost just introduce yourself and who you are, and then talk about what collective flow is, so that our audiences can learn.
Kia ora, my name's Bailey Lenart. I'm a chartered accountant based out of New Zealand, but I'm originally from South Florida. I was trained as an accountant at Florida Atlantic University, and when I was a senior year of college, I went on a trip to New Zealand and decided I'm moving there. So I've had my whole career based in New Zealand, and the equivalent of a CPA. But around the time that I actually got my certificate, I'd done all the tests and everything. I actually ended up jumping ship and going into a tech company. If you've ever heard of the Zero accounting software, which is cloud accounting software for small to mid-sized businesses, I happened to work about half a mile away from them just as they were taking off and building their accounting products. So I ended up meeting Rod Drury, telling him he was the CEO at the time, telling him I would like to possibly work at Zero one day when I moved back to America. And he said, why don't you work here now? And that was an incredible journey. I started in sales support as employee, I think 550, and I left as a platform product manager, which means I was leading 5 software development teams that were building software for other developers who were building software for small businesses and accountants. And it was a wild journey where I really learned about how important it is to create the conditions at work for people to thrive. So in software development, you might have heard of agile ways of working or empowered product teams. These ways of operating are about how do we enable these teams to have the creativity to figure out how to solve the problems, but the clarity of what's important and the habits to be able to iteratively learn and develop. And these ways of working just they worked. I could see it when I was a product owner, which meant I was leading a software development team myself. And I just loved it. Like I still say my time in that team is just what I've been chasing for the past 10 years. But when I was promoted to a leader, so I was leading multiple of those teams, it was madness. Because while at this team you had the agility to decide what to do and how to solve the problems, how do you do that across multiple teams when you're just one part of a much bigger picture? And that situation made me really, I burnt out, to be honest. I burnt out. I was a new mom. I was struggling, and I decided that I needed to find a better way. And I did. And it was incredible. I left Zero on a high note in 2021, and I ended up working at a business called Sharesies, which is a B Corp, so a benefit corporation who's dedicated to really balancing purpose and profit. And they're very similar to Robin Hood. So they're looking at democratizing investment. So somebody with $5 has the same opportunity of somebody with 5 million. And I was able to recreate the same thing. I was able to create the conditions for these teams for people to thrive. But I could see that outside my zone of influence, there was still the same patterns that I was seeing at Zero, the madness, the lack of clarity, the people who were struggling to keep up. And around that time, I picked up a book called Regenerative Leadership. And that book changed my life. So that's a book by Laura Storm and Giles Hutchins. And what it made me realize was the ways of working that I was using, that I was seeing all these benefits from, worked because they were aligned with how nature works. And so the way that I approach regeneration and the foundation for the collective flow is really looking at living systems patterns and how life works and applying that to the living system of an organization. It was probably around 6 months into, no, I think it was a year. I stayed at Sharesies for a while, experimenting with ideas, but I realized I needed to be outside of the system to explore it. And so I created first a consultancy called World Changing Business because I read the phrase in a book and thought it was hilarious. And I didn't think about what I would need to say when I introduced myself as Bailey from World Changing Business, and they said, "What do you do?" And I didn't know because I was still figuring it out. Because when you look at how nature works, nature emerges. It's not a linear jump of, hey, I'm going to save the world. I'm going to do a regenerative thing. I know exactly what I need to do, and I'm going to follow this line to get there. You set an intention, and then you're experimenting and figuring it out. And it was actually 6 months into that journey when I was at a conference and I was introducing myself as Bailey from World Changing Business with no real answer. So what do you do? That the idea for collective flow arrived. And I say arrived because I did not think it up. I was studying all these ideas. I had had the experience of feeling that problem in large organizations that were dealing with rapid change. But this idea of going, whoa, what if we could use software that applies living system principles that enables us as humans to find our own version of flying like a flock of birds, of having that agility at scale, that we're able to adapt to changing market environments. And it's not disruptive. You don't see burnt out birds, do you? Nature is complex and is
Yeah.
dealing with rapid change.
Yeah.
So how,
Yeah. Sorry.
oh
I
no,
was like, well, except for like New York City pigeons, they seemed a little burnt out, but that's a different
they
story.
do seem burnt out, don't they?
Yeah.
But we need to remember that we domesticated pigeons and we hate
Uh,
pigeons now and we treat them as rats. And it's like they're the rats of the sky. But it's because we domesticated them, they lost sight of even how they fit into.
but I digress. New York City pigeons is
Yeah.
continue your yeah. I love what you're saying.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
such a perfect tangent though.
Yeah.
But that's really the foundation for where collective flow came from, was looking at how do we innovate at scale? How do we create something that enables our people to thrive, to use their gifts in service of a shared vision? Because the writing's on the wall in the world, right? The climate change is coming. Like we're dealing with geopolitical turmoil. AI is introduced and disrupting businesses day to day. And we're changing the goalposts of what it means to be a successful business. It's not just shareholder value. We're actually needing to think about how are we impacting the environment? How are we impacting society? And it's not just for do-gooders as well. Like companies in New Zealand and Australia and Europe are now having to report on the impact of climate to their business and how they're mitigating that. And so we're seeing through all of this change that our ways of operating just don't work anymore. The old ways of managing that haven't really adapted from the 50s that are still based off of a manufacturing model don't work. And so this is how can we use technology to come up with a different way? So I can show you what that really looks like if
Yeah.
you have any
Yeah.
questions
Well,
though.
do you want to talk about the because so for those of you who are watching, I do encourage you to check out our website because there's a couple of things on there that are really important for those who are interested in this work to understand, right? For example, we have a theory of change, and that's sort of one of the core components to who we are and how and the kind of impact that we see as a possibility. The other thing that we have on our website is this thing called our 5 pillars of regenerative accounting. And so I note that because did you want to talk about those first before you go into sort of what you're showing, or like how would you prefer?
Yeah, I can show those now, actually. I've just pulled that slide up.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So when I first talked to Ingrid, who's also one of the co-founders of the Accounting Alchemy Network around collective flow, she's like, this fits right in the humane governance. And so humane governance means a lot of things, right? Like we're really thinking about not just at the business level, but globally, local governments and the like. But how I look at it is around the power dynamic shifting from a power over to a power with. So, a huge aspect of the problems that we have, because it's not just the people down the chain in organizations that are struggling. The leaders are having decision fatigue because they're going from meeting to meeting, trying to decide things that they don't even have the context to determine. So it's not just like this command and control thing doesn't work for anyone because your people are feeling disengaged and not wanting to work because they're not involved in the decision making, and the people above are feeling burnt out because they're having to do all the decision making. So this shift to how can we enable the distributed decision making, but we do that by creating transparency because you can't have autonomy without accountability, really. It's all fine to go off and do your own thing, but how do we create the transparency so that the leader above can go, oh, I can. They know exactly what they're doing. I'm seeing, I have real-time visibility of it. I trust them to make those decisions. It's a feedback loop. And so that's a real aspect from a humane governance is how do we support this shift from this command and control model to more of like, how do I set the course of where we're aiming for and enable the people through visibility of information and clarity of how they fit into the picture to actually move into that. And a huge aspect of this is so in the latest Gallup workplace survey, so they do the biggest global workplace survey report. In 2024, they reported only 22% of people are engaged at work, which is wild. They said that the cost of disengagement is, I think, $8.9 trillion, which globally is around 9% of our global GDP, not just looking out at one nation. So there's all of this wasted potential just sitting there. And there's this company called Indeed that does a lot of workplace surveys. And they actually showed, they created an index because they say, how happy are employees? And they found the happiest organizations, and they created an index like the S&P 500. They had like a happiness 100, and it outperformed the S&P 500. So it shows that when you have happy people in your organization, it actually leads to profitability, agility, all these things. And the number one factor when it comes to what's going to make your employees happy, which is really surprising, isn't how much you're paid, isn't how much you're appreciated. It's how energized you are by the work that you're doing. You're happy when you're energized and you're like, yes, this is the kind of I'm bringing my gifts to the surface. And so that's something that we're enabling through our software, which I'll show you is by helping people to discover what are the bits of work that I'm doing that energize me, that drain me, so that they can find the opportunities to shift, which is, I think, really cool because I don't know about you, but I know that when I've been energized in a role, I've been able to give more than ever before. that was like my first experience at Zero. And then when I moved into product marketing, which I didn't last very long in, it took me a long time to realize I was in the wrong role. And I was just burnt out, not from overwork, but just from like a lack of purpose and a lack of really leveraging my strengths. So if we can support people to utilize their strengths and service to the business, like we're getting somewhere. And the last way we integrate into the pillars is around the planet and climate. We do this indirectly, which makes sense if we're taking a living systems approach. We're not here for you do this and this happens. But being in right relationship and recognizing responsibility to the world around us. So for me, I realized that we can't have these organizations that are dedicated to changing the world and doing all the, purpose, profit, societal impact, great for employees, if we're still operating in a way that's extractive to the people within our organization. It's just you have to be the change you want to see in the world. It's the inner work. So what we're doing is we're focusing on supporting people to have the greater awareness of how they fit into a larger organization, build that capability in an operating model, so then it's much easier to change and make that impact outside of the organization. But it all starts with that embodied understanding of that you are part of a bigger whole. And while we're not going to make that mindset shift for people, what we can do is we can encourage them and provide them with tools that makes that mindset shift just easier to make.
Got it. That makes sense. And I really appreciate this framing because I think it gives clear context to how your work is in direct alignment with the work of what it means to be a regenerative accounting professional. And I have to say, also sidebar, nothing to do with New York City Pigeon, that the fact that you have this technology accounting background and that you're so passionate about this work, just I think it's just such a rich opportunity for you to be the entrepreneur and contributing to this work. So I'd actually, if you don't mind, I know we're coming up near time for the demo. So could we switch over to do the demo?
Yes. And what's hilarious is it's very much accounting. Yeah, it's so inspired by Zero, to be honest. So I saw a quote that Alina posted on Facebook in the Accounting Alchemy group from Ingrid. How do we turn accounting into how we account for what we want to be held accountable to, right? And that's what we're starting to do at the organizational level is like, what is the things that I'm trying to achieve in my job, and how am I contributing to that? And hey, is this energizing or is this draining? So that's basically the basics of how it works. But let me actually get to the showing. Can you see a
I
different screen or is it
Yeah,
still?
it says reconcile, connect your energy to your output.
Yeah.
That's
Cool.
that's good.
I'll start here. So the way that collective flow works right now, this is an MVP. Our focus at the moment, what like has been to like, hey, let's build a product that people really love. Right now, there's three co-founders. I've got a technical co-founder and a design co-founder. I've been working on this for about a year. But we've recently pivoted to go, hey, we can't go fast enough with the resource that we have. So we've pivoted to now we're raising investment. So what we're really looking for now, if you're watching this, is feedback on how does this resonate? Does this resonate with you? Do you see value in it? I'll put a link to a survey towards the end as well, just to get your input so that it can help us with getting some sound bites and the like if this does energize you and you see value in it. But this is just the beginning. So what you're seeing here is a list of like actually all of the things I'm working towards. My number one goal is to attract aligned investors with a compelling pitch. We've got some beta users and we want to make sure we give them a good experience. And why I'm here right now, I want people to know and be excited about collective flow. And so all of these goals are laddered up into higher level goals. So you can see here that I've got raise 400 to 500K. People know and advocate for collective flow here. And so there's a link between what I'm doing and what we as an organization of three people are doing. But we see this as being much bigger than three people. But the key experience is very inspired by, if you've ever used Zero, the Zero bank reconciliation. So instead of being a project management tool that is what you use every day and you have to plan everything out and it's doing that, we want to integrate with those tools. We don't want to be that tool. Right now, our one integration is with meetings because we heard over and over that people were stuck in so many meetings. They'd get to the end of the week and not know if they made an impact. And that's the problem that we're looking at solving. So I've got a number of things here. This is my calendar. And I didn't actually end up going to this training, but this morning I did go to a Sustainable Founders Forum, which was really looking at, let me see if I can develop a pipeline. If I went up to a VC and was like, hello, my name is Bailey, trying to find those aligned people. And I was really energized by it, by learning from them. Uh, I actually didn't go to this today because I was at that other event, didn't go here, but I worked on the pitch with my co-founder. So I attract and aligned investors with a compelling pitch. And I love working with Becca. It was super energizing. Uh, we actually ended up pitching. So again, and we were practicing it and refining it. Uh, it was energizing. It was kind of okay. But I know that this Toastmasters meeting on Tuesday, it was draining, to be honest. I didn't enjoy it. I'm the president of our local club, and I'm like, oh, what have I taken on? What am I doing? And here we were really talking about rapidly adapting. So here I've got all of the meetings I've done. So once I've got that done, I can come in and start to see how everything that's happening aligns and where my energy is going alongside my team. So I can see here that Becca has done some pitch deck and Figma prototypes to create a future product vision. So that's where we really want to get investment, is to create some really cool visuals that you can understand at a glance how things are, energy is going through the organization. And these actually can start to shift week on week. So you can start to see how energy is shifting and energy is changing. But probably more important for us as individuals is to see like, well, am I working on things that are energizing? What's good is you can see that actually I am. I'm working on I'm mostly energized through the day because I'm doing purpose-driven work. But for other people in organizations that might not be in a role, this might be a real mirror to let them know, like, hey, what am I going to do to change? I can see, hey, I've actually met with heaps of different people to grow my network because that's part of my job. This is looking at everybody who's been in the meetings. But look at this. I can see that actually I said that my number two priority is to give a great service to beta users, but I'm not doing anything. So this is helping me go, hey, I need to start re-engaging with the existing beta users. This is giving me these insights of where my time is going. But what we see is meetings is just the first thing that we're going to be integrating with. Right now, our plan page, it's not telling you very much. But once we get more integrations, for example, if you're working in Teams and you've got all the documents that you're working in, or Figma files, or maybe you have Asana that you're using and has projects. If we can start mapping those things and we can start bringing in, we're not just providing people insights on, hey, what are the things that are energizing and draining? We can become the place that you jump off from because we're actually showing you for each of my goals, here's the most recent files, here's the projects, and it's bringing all of the tools that you're using together so that it's like one place that you could jump off to all the different things that you're using. And one of the things we're really looking to integrate in an ethical way, because there is some things that are challenging with AI, with the amount of power that it's using and energy that it uses. But looking at if we can use AI in an ethical way of how we can use insights to help people to adapt. Right now, we're showing people information, but we're not really providing them with advice on what to do next. Whereas in a larger organization, if there were tasks that I found draining, that you, Matthew, found really energizing, if the system can just say, hey, why don't you delegate that through to Matthew? That's a really amazing shift. And we start to see that agility of helping people to play to their strengths, all in service to the greater whole. And where we want to get to is, we think about the flying like a flock of birds is when strategy changes, because we understand how strategy, people, and the work all connect, we can notify people so that they can determine, hey, how does your outcomes need to change now that we've done this pivot, which is what will enable that self-organization. So where we're at the moment, we believe that the people who we should be working with right now, who are going to be so important, again, very inspired by the Xero story. So for those who don't know Xero is cloud accounting software, but the reason that they were so successful was because they had an incredibly engaged partner channel of accountants. And they loved Xero because suddenly, this was back in 2010, 2011, they could have conversations about what was happening today because all the information was in one place rather than needing to migrate your accounting data to this system and then align it back with this system. Because everything was in one place, as soon as they did their work, they had accurate figures pretty much going forward and could have these amazing move into advisory rather than historical compliance type work. Where we see our channel is with change consultants, people who are working to transform organizations into more humane and life-centric ways of being. If we can provide them a tool that 10x's their work because we put their strategy into motion and we enable it to adapt, and that people actually start doing the things that they've told them to do in a beautiful PDF, then that's going to make their work that much more impactful. So where we're at the moment is looking for those early adopters who are energized by what they've seen, who are interested in being a part of our story, to come and help co-design with us, help us understand what clients it's going to work best with, to trial it with those clients, and then we'll work really close beside you to build the integrations that are necessary to shape this experience into something that is commercial, that will have a huge impact. But right now, because it's so theoretical for people, they don't understand the living systems way of being. And it's something that is a journey that we're on. We really need those people who understand and from a philosophy level and the living systems approach to go, oh, this is the future and we want to be a part of it.
Yeah, this is super amazing. And we have some comments coming in, so I'll sort of acknowledge that and maybe get to some of these comments and questions in just a moment.
Yeah.
But what I really, I mean, awesome, first of all. Thank you for sharing this. Like it's the simplicity of it is fascinating. I know as somebody, I literally, when we first started our conversation before we turned on the live stream, I was telling you about my day and all the stuff I was doing, and I can't even fathom the number of meetings I've been in the last 3 days, right? And something like this, would really be helpful for me to realize, okay, wait, I did all this work, I put in all this energy. Some moments I felt, and sort of a little bit of a blur, but some moments I felt like, oh, that was really exciting, and I could have stayed on longer. And some moments I was just dragging through the experience, and so having this tool to be able to go back and say, like, okay, first of all, what did I just do as it relates to my goals is really critical. And then to be able to sort of reconcile that energy drain piece is fascinating. And so yeah, and so I'm really pumped for this. And yeah, just I guess I'm curious, like if we can kind of look at some of these comments. So one of the
Yeah.
questions, first of all, Alina's like, wow, this is amazing. Holy see, she said, this is cool, right? And then she mentioned that I see you got the word team up there next to me, right? Can
Yeah.
you toggle over to that? Because I think there's a curiosity around
Oh yeah,
the,
this is our first visualization at the moment. So
mm,
because we don't have that many meetings, but you can see that you've got, this is Becca, this is the work that she's doing. She's BO and I'm BL. So you're
mm,
starting to be able to see how over an organization we'll be able to create a map so you can see how all of
mm,
your people are connecting through. This
mm,
is, I would say, like MV, like, it's like zero point 0.2 at the moment. There's a lot of opportunity for us to bring in data science and visualization. It
mm.
hasn't really been our skill set, which is why we're looking for investment so that we can have the focus to
Yeah.
do this. And we're really looking at it from like, where can we find the people who are in the sustainability space or possibly regenerative thinkers
Yeah.
who understand the ethos and want to be part of this. But I mean, what'll be so awesome is what I described before is because right now we have these visualizations and you can see how things change over time as well. So where you can see we had a pivot. We used to be focused so much on the beta, and now it's all about investment pitch. So some of the things that we're working on instead are like, this is the live thing. I haven't shown you anything fake. Like this is all software that works and
Yeah.
is in production that we've got users using.
Mm.
But what we're doing is we're like, well, how can we paint pictures of the vision? So people are like, yeah, well, here's my money. We want to be a part of it. So you
Yeah.
can see how even our energy is starting to shift.
Yeah. Now, related to one of the questions in the chat, are you going to make it possible for for your users to be able to see like, oh, this person's in meetings and they're in meetings that are draining them, right? Are you going to be able to drill down at that level to see like how people are being impacted?
Yeah, so right now, the way that we're thinking about it is we want people to trust the system, right? We don't want this to be a nanny cam. We don't want it to be like, oh, look at this. So what's different from us for other systems like 15.5 or
Hmm.
Office 5 is we're not like throwing feedback somewhere
Hmm.
for somebody to then respond to. So
Yeah.
we'll be working with our users to see like what information can we give that's not eroding your trust in the system?
Hmm.
Because if it's like, oh, my boss is going to be like, you're drained and it be kind of used against you. But what we
Hmm.
will do is we want to be able to show, so here we're showing movement over time. But what if on the bottom you could see across your organization the vibe, the average vibe? Are people really energized or are people really
Hmm.
drained? Can we map a milestone that's happened there? Did you announce a restructure and that really like impeded, people are feeling more drained and not as energized in the organization? So looking at how we can bring those things that's
Yeah.
across the collective so you can start to notice trends of what's happening in your organization.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I really appreciate that piece about sort of m monitoring that. The truth is that certain types of information, depending on the culture, could be actually used against the person. So I hear what you're saying there. That makes sense. Another comment that was brought up, or question that actually had to do with tax returns, right? So a lot of our audience members are accountants. Maybe they're not spending so much time in meetings, but they've got stack of tax returns and they need to crank through them. And let's just hope that they're energized by the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. But what happens when they start, losing that energy? Could we use this, or are you intending to create the possibility of being able to use this to kind of evaluate on a task level? Like what activity?
That's
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that that's something that we need to think about because I think we don't want to be a task management system because if you tick 10 things off your to-do list and I tick 5, I just might not use a to-do list. But if we could say like, hey, I process 10 like the actual tax returns or this document, and
Hmm.
then we can reconcile that, that's something that we want to look at doing. We just need to figure out, is this data entry useful for them? Where we see it is we could be disrupting um, the time tracking space,
Hmm.
which, because what's more draining than accountants than freaking time tracking? It is, I mean, I remember 6-minute units. Oh my God, you'd be sitting there going like, who do I charge this cup of tea to? And you would always be balancing it out because I have more budget on this guy and I've got this job's bad and you get no insights out of it. But if instead I'm going like, uh, this tax return, this financial statements, and they were draining and then these ones were just like sweet and energizing, that might give you better insights that you're under billing for this one. And this is a really good one that you have more so
Hmm.
than your typical time tracking, which people are
Yeah.
gaming anyways. So I think that yes, we will look at that. We just need to figure out how do we maintain the gamified, for lack of a better word, or enjoyable and useful nature of the data entry,
Yeah.
because that's what we want to challenge is right now all these systems to create visibility
Yeah.
or to do a thing are annoying or like just they just feel like another task
Hmm.
on you, like just feel like they're adding to your load and not helping. We want to challenge that and just make sure whatever data entry we have is useful for the person.
Got it. Yeah. And what I also really appreciate, I think, about the philosophy a little bit behind this, from what I'm ascertaining, is it's also about the individual's sense of self-reflection and sort of commitment to like, okay, I'm choosing to be aware of what my goals are, first of all, and how the things I'm doing connect to those things. And then I'm choosing to be aware of, and I almost like the simplicity of it. It's like it's just those three options. It's like it's either draining you, it's somewhat neutral, or it's like energizing you. It's like, of course, you want to move more towards the things that are energizing you, but it's like then to be able to reflect over a period of time, say, wow, 50% of the things I did this month were draining me. Maybe I should have a conversation with my clients or my colleagues or my coworkers or my boss or whoever the other person is, be like, hey, I've been tracking this and I got to be honest with you. Here's what's happening, right? So it puts the power in the hands of the user to really stand up for them and have data to back it, to be like, no, actually, look, here's the data. You see right here. Here are the meetings, here are the conversations. Yeah, I love that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's empowering. Wants it like we're building that capability. If we want to fly like a flock of birds, we want to figure out how we can have that agility. It
Hmm.
depends on the agency of our people.
Yeah.
And to be honest, that's why we're focusing on innovators and not the status quo, because people don't believe that they have the agency. They don't know that the change starts with them. And so we need to start with the people who already understand that, who see that the status quo of work isn't working and want to be part of that change. And
Hmm.
then we can start to build their capability to adapt, to reflect, to do this. And
Yeah.
what you're seeing at the individual level, we want to then enable at the team level and the organizational level, because it's all interconnected, but it's still the same thing. It's
Hmm.
how does our strategy connect to our people, connect to the work that's done, and
Hmm.
then having the habits to constantly reflect so that when things change, you
Yeah.
can adapt as well
Yeah.
at all of those different levels.
Yeah, no, this is super cool. So we are a little over time actually. I think this is which is perfectly fine, because this was super cool and I love that you were able to show us something. I'm such a visual person, so this is very helpful on many levels. Is there anything else you'd like to share or any invitations for our listeners if they're interested in this and want to learn more? What's the call to action for people here?
The call to action, I'll just put it in the chat for the few of us that are here, and then I'll share the link to put into the YouTube, is a form just to let us know what you think. Like right now, as I said, our focus is on capital raising. And so if you see legs in this and you're happy to have a testimonial that says, I see this as the future with your name on it on a slide, that's super helpful for us.
Yeah.
If you work with clients that you think that this would be helpful for, please reach out to me. We are wanting to cultivate a community of engaged, early adopters and change consultants that we can bring this to life with. Because right now, it's just meetings, but it's going to be way more. We see this as the GPS for innovative businesses.
Yeah.
It's not just about knowing where you're going. You need to know where you're at to be able to decide that next step.
Fair. And just to be fair, even if all it ever is for meetings, like that is huge because how many people complain about the meetings that they go to and the disconnect between outcomes and the time wasted and the energy and all that stuff. I mean, that alone is a significant
Yeah.
the puzzle. So,
Yeah, and there's lots of tools out there that help with meetings, but you know what they don't tell you? They
mm.
don't help you decide should I even be there. And that's what we're doing is we're helping you like, yeah, you can create more space in your calendar with an AI tool, but that AI tool is not going to go, I don't think you should go there anymore.
Though that would be kind of cool if it did, right? Be like, come on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe our
But
AI tool
yeah,
will.
yeah, maybe yours will. Awesome. All right. So for those of you who are here and live, thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate it. For those of you who are watching the recording, please leave your comments, questions below. If you are interested in this platform, please reach out to Bailey. Clearly, Bailey's open to receiving feedback and wants to just do some really great work in the world, to help us all have better work life, better, more meaningful, more impactful less draining work lives, which is exactly in alignment with the work that we advocate for within the five pillars of the Accounting Alchemy Network. And again, for those of you who aren't familiar with us or with Bailey, please check the links below. Come check out what we're up to in our community. And with that being said, Bailey, thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure having you, okay?
Thank you.
All righty, everybody have a good day. Bye now.